Devlin, Untamed.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
The Platform.
iOS, it's only sport. That's the name of this podcast. That's the name of the program that we present 1 till 4, Monday through Friday on the Platform. My name is Martin Devlin, alongside Lachlan Waugh. What are we talking about today? Women's World Cup. If you're not watching it, I really feel that you're missing out. I'm going to explain that to you shortly. Special guests on this podcast, Simon Hill, A-League caller, calling a lot of the FIFA Women's World Cup. He's here in New Zealand for the quarters and the semis. Simon Doull, Dooley, joins us every Thursday. A couple of key cricket questions to consider about Trent Boult and Kane Williamson, and including them in the Black Caps One Day World Cup squad. And Greg Martin, Marto, as always. Just too much fun. As always, begin this program, tablets in hand. I say, gather my flock. It is time for a sermon. Why aren't you watching the Women's World Cup? Let's go to the mountaintop.
We live in an amazing, amazing world, and it's wasted on the crappiest generation of just spoiled idiots.
That's boring. Who cares? No one is watching. Women's soccer? What? I mean, you're not even good enough to beat an under-15 boys team. The skill level's not there, the pace is lacking, the shots aren't that hard, blah, blah, blah. You're only talking about it because you have to. You're only talking about it because you think that you have to. You're only talking about it because you're told to. You're only talking about it because the rest of the mass mainstream media is gushing all over it, and you think if you don't, well, you're not doing your job properly. I want to debunk all of these myths today because the figures are undeniable, ladies and gentlemen. Whatever you say about the Women's World Cup, it is attracting attendances, record attendances, both in Australia and here in New Zealand, that are undeniable and cannot be ignored. Rugby is our national game. It'll always be our national game. Well, hang on. Will it always be our national game? Should NZR be a little concerned and a little worried about what they're seeing? Super Rugby Aotearoa, Super Rugby Opiki, NPC, FPC, that's National Provincial Championship, that's Whara Palmer Cup. They can't get a crowd to these games. The last time, outside of a Super Rugby final in New Zealand, that you got a really, really good crowd at Eden Park, I remember was an NPC final from a few years back, and it was on a Sunday, it rained during the day, and they let everyone in for free. And there was about 25,000 turned up. Well, I was watching last night, NPC Rugby, the world's greatest provincial rugby competition, so we're constantly told by the fish heads in Wellington that run the sport and run it badly. Northland versus Taranaki. You couldn't count the spectators because you couldn't find them. And yet, tomorrow night at Eden Park, there's going to be a quarterfinal of the Women's World Cup between two teams not involving New Zealand. Lachlan, you're going. It's a record sellout crowd on top of the last record sellout crowd. Midweek matches in New Zealand. Rainy, cold, nasty Auckland. You got to go to Eden Park on a Monday or a Tuesday night with all the hassle that involves, with the cost that it involves, sitting outside in that concrete jungle, and people in their tens of thousands are turning up. As I say, this is undeniable. You can't debate this. People don't go to things that they don't want to go to. And they don't go and watch sport that is rubbish, that is shite, that is not worth watching. It's as simple as that. They're not going because some feminist edict demands that they go. If the entertainment in front of you isn't entertaining enough, you're not going to turn up. Why are people going to Oppenheimer in record numbers? Why are people going to Barbie in record numbers? Well, because those movies are actually really good movies. They're not going just because somebody else went and somebody else told them to. This is amongst the harshest economic times that I have experienced in my lifetime. People are really struggling out there. But they're paying their hard-earned. They are using their leisure time to go and watch women's football. In Australia, get this, the television viewing figures for Australia versus Denmark the other night, the round of 16, beat every one of the Origin games. Every one of the Origin games. Are you not worried, NRL? Are you not worried? AFL? Of course you're worried. You're worried that there could be an explosion in numbers and football numbers, especially we're constantly told, oh, women's rugby, great sport in the world, numbers through the roof. Maybe it's actually going to be round ball football that attracts those kind of numbers. Maybe that's what we're seeing. Maybe the downstream effect of these record crowds in New Zealand, I mean that, a whole lot of young Kiwi girls are not going to pick up a rugby ball. They're not going to pick up a netball. Maybe they'll start playing football. What you're watching at the Women's World Cup is the finest athletes and exponents in that sport in the world in front of us. You can't compare it to the men's game because that's like saying, I'm not going to watch the A-League because Messi's not playing. Of course, the A-League is rubbish compared to the Premier League, but if you love the Phoenix, you're still going to watch it. If you don't like it, you don't like it, and that's perfectly okay. But the evidence is overwhelming. This tournament has excited people. It has created much interest, and it is still doing it. We have got a quarterfinal on the weekend. We've got 2 quarterfinals, as a matter of fact, in New Zealand, then a semi-final on Tuesday. And all 3 matches are sellouts, and every other sport in this country is looking at that with envy, thinking, wow, how do we attract that kind of audience? If you're not interested, you're not interested. But it's you who's missing out, and as far as the Women's World Cup goes, they're not missing you.
Devlin.
What do you want?
We want information. Information.
You won't get it.
The platform.
Lachlan, sports news headlines.
I have an update on Kane Williamson. From Gary Stead, the Black Caps coach. Of course, Kane Williamson has been sidelined with an ACL injury since April.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed thou, my mum, just food, I'm Jesus, holy Mother, God, pray for sinners now, out the death of me now, Father who art in heaven. Tell me the good news. I'm praying for you.
And you meant every word of that, didn't you? That's why you rushed through it.
Hey, listen, you can't judge that. Only whoever is upstairs can judge that.
Who said I was judging? I meant it. You meant every word of that. Why do you think I was being sarcastic?
Because.
Because I'm always sarcastic.
Yes, because mainly that.
Yeah.
Come on, Kane, come back, mate.
Black Caps coach Gary Stead has revealed an encouraging update on the status of our white ball skipper, but says it's still too soon to know whether he will make the ODI World Cup squad. This is what Gary Stead had to say. He'll be getting a little bit of training under his belt, being in and around the squad. Leaning on his experiences will be important to the group, but ultimately it's about seeing whether he will be ready for us, and that's something only time will tell. It's a good sign, but he's not there yet.
Do you do the Sia Khaleesi with this guy? Do you take him as an inspiration? And if he can play, he plays? I believe so.
Do you think is Kane Williamson an inspiring force in that Black Caps locker room?
Absolutely,
Actually,
he is.
Probably
Mate.
is.
He
Yeah,
is,
probably
man.
is.
I'll tell you what, you walk into that locker room, he's sitting down there with his 19 perfectly manicured bats and
his 20-carat diamond bat.
You did, but every bat positioned exactly how he likes it and his things. You'd be sitting there going, when that guy's here, we have a chance of winning. That's what I'd be thinking.
Agreed. Right, New Zealand's premier cyclist Aaron Gate has won the gold medal in the men's points race on the final day of competition at the UCI World Championships in Scotland. This is, of course, track cycling. Gate dominated the 160-lap race, gaining 4 laps on the field in a magnificent performance to continue his momentum, of course, from his historic quadruple gold medal haul at last year's Commonwealth Games. And what did he do after getting those 4 gold medals, Martin? Within a week after it ended, he was in Spain.
We phoned him and we said, lovely having a holiday, Gatesy. Dickheads, he said. Well, he didn't. He said it the nice possible way. He said, I'm training. I'm doing 20 Ks a day. I'm back training. We go, well. I love this dude. He has just overachieved, hasn't he?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think he's achieved. Overachieved suggests that maybe we didn't expect he could do any of this.
Well, I didn't think that, he would win as many medals as he did last year, and this is the first gold that he's won at the World Cycling Champs since 2013.
There you go, 10 years, yep. Rugby news, a long-time captain Michael Hooper has reportedly been left out of coach Eddie Jones' 33-man Wallaby squad for the Rugby World Cup. Big news this. The 125-test veteran had been eyeing a third World Cup, made his debut back in 2015, but the Sydney Morning Herald is reporting that Hooper was told yesterday he would not be on the Australian squad, which is being announced tonight at 8:30. Reasoning mainly because he's got a calf injury. There's concerns over it. He's not fully healthy yet. But also, I think, if we're being honest, there's more to it than just that. Last year he took a break from rugby, but being overworked, and there was rumblings that there was a mental health aspect to it as well. He came back this year, came back fired up. But I think that, coupled with the calf injury, if you're Eddie Jones, you're sitting there going, are you a little bit too risky to take? And clearly he thinks so. And I think Eddie Jones is experienced enough and smart enough in the game of rugby for us to sit there and go, he knows what he's doing, he's making the right call, and from a health perspective. All right, Taranaki have dispatched Northland 28-13 in the NPC match last night in Whangarei. Who knew this was on? Not me. You had to text me to actually remind me.
Well, mate, I guilty as clean forgot, okay, that there was a match on. I love the idea that there's a match on Wednesdays. I was flicking around the channels last night going, what's there to watch?
I don't. I think it's wasted to be...
No. Mate, there's a TV...
Mate,
look, I keep saying it's a TV sport, mate.
Yeah, I know, but who watched it? Give me the TV numbers. Who watched it?
I watched 10 to 15 minutes.
See, I watch my sport on the weekends. I don't really watch much during the weeks because I'm out doing things. Well, not really doing much, but like I have football on Tuesdays, I have quiz last night.
You're out taking her out on a date?
There is no her.
Okay, all right. Well, you're out going to...
I'm going out.
To
there might
places
be
trying
dates.
to find it. Oh, really?
Might be. Anyway, moving on. This is News Bulletin. This isn't Lachlan's Life Bulletin. West Ham United have agreed deals for Manchester United's Harry Maguire.
Yes!
And Southampton's James Ward-Prowse. He's going to West Ham.
Goodbye.
Both deals are worth in the region of £30 million, apparently. The Premier League is investigating potential financial rule breaches by Chelsea. Chelsea were fined £8.6 million by UEFA in July for breaking FFP rules as a result of submitting incomplete financial information between 2012 and 2019. Those breaches were reported by the new Stamford Bridge ownership following the club's sale in May. It is understood, I think it was May last year they were sold, wasn't it? It wasn't May this year, May last year. It is understood they also notified the Premier League of similar issues. The league are now looking at whether concrete charges, such as those facing Manchester City and Everton, are appropriate. Okay, well that story is just flat out wrong because whatever charges Man City are facing, they're not concrete, they're made of rice paper because they're getting away with all of it.
119 separate charges.
What's happened?
Well, last time they had a 2-year ban.
And then it was overturned.
Well, no.
It was reduced to one.
One on appeal.
And then it was overturned.
On a technicality at the Court of Arbitration.
What, like a Dalton Papali'i technicality?
Well, exactly.
With all due respect to Dalton Papali'i.
Dalton was guilty of driving at horrendous speed on the motorway. It was
180 or something.
Something crazy like that. And it just so happened that the equipment wasn't working. That means that doesn't mean he didn't do it.
Didn't do it. It just means... Yeah. Anyway, that's what's making news, Martin.
Devlin.
Oh, my goodness me!
The platform.
The FIFA Women's World Cup is proven to be one of the most popular sporting events that has ever come down this part of the world. The crowds are absolutely undeniable. Record attendances here in New Zealand and Australia, of course. Their team's still in the competition. Simon Doull is an A-League caller. You would have heard his voice right across commentating these games. He's here for the quarterfinals and the semi-final. Correct me if I'm wrong. I would say that France and Japan, to me, are the two favourites, given the way that they've played. France whacking in 10 goals in the last couple of games. The Japanese have only conceded 1 goal in 4 games, and they look slick with their passing. Would you agree those are the two best teams?
I'd certainly say Japan in their half of the draw look to be one of the outstanding teams. There's no doubt about that. So, I mean, they banged in goals for fun. They absolutely hammered Spain, who are another fancied team, by 4-0. They've had a long development. This Japanese team. They've been winning World Cups and getting to finals at junior level for quite a few years now. So this is almost like a golden generation for them. They take on Sweden, who of course knocked out the United States of America, who'd not lost a game in the finals since 2011. So can you rule Sweden out? I don't know. The French, yes, looking very good, with the caveat that, well, 2 caveats. First of all, in the last 16, they played Morocco, who are probably the weakest with respect to them, probably the weakest team in the last 16. And in the quarters, of course, they face Australia in Brisbane. So when you're facing the host nation and a full house of screaming fans all against you, that could make it tricky for them. And they've already lost to Australia in a friendly just before the tournament started. So, it's not to say that they can't win. Of course they can. They've got 2 wonderful players, Wendy Renard, central defender, and Eugénie Le Sommer, the striker, 2 of the best in the world in their positions. And they can certainly defeat Australia, but equally the reverse is true.
Sam Kerr, we just don't see the press. We don't sort of get, what you're getting on that side of the ditch. But, the potential of her to turn into, a Kathy Freeman, that big in terms of Australian sport?
Yeah. She is, to be honest. Her name is everywhere. When I was flying over to Auckland yesterday, I had a look at the local paper, and front and back page were both Sam Kerr. Now, in an AFL city like Melbourne, that speaks volumes. Her image is everywhere. She's been used to sell this World Cup, really, in Australia. So, the fact that she had that injury was headline news. And to be honest, for a week, I was getting sick of hearing the question, is Sam playing? Is she fit? Now, she came off the bench in the win against Denmark, so she's now available. There's going to be an almighty clamour for her to start against France in the quarterfinals. Personally, I'd stick with the team that they've got because Mary Fowler has been terrific in that false nine role, offers them something a little bit different to Sam Kerr. And maybe, save Sam to get a right, 100% right for the semi-final, which could be against England if they beat Colombia. And that would be huge, obviously.
4 quarterfinals, mate. 8 teams left. Pick your 4 semi-finalists for me, please.
Okay, I'm going to go for Australia, England, Japan, and the Netherlands.
Wow. Okay. That last one's a bit of a surprise. Yeah. All right.
Well, they reached the final 4 years ago, where they were beaten by the Americans. And, even though the Spanish have improved, the fact that they got belted by Japan by 4-0, they've had some issues behind the scenes, which a lot of teams have over pay and conditions. I just think that the Dutch might be too good for them.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full. I'm the Minister of Common Sense, though. That goes without debate. Or
Next!
I don't have to ask your permission.
We need to talk. We need to talk. Next!
Lachlan, I'm going to present a scenario to you called What is More Chance of Happening? And you're going to...
I love this game.
You're going to tell me what you think out of the two different situations that I'm about to present. What is more chance of happening? The West Tigers beat the Warriors on Saturday night, or, and we'll go through one by one quarterfinals, the Dutch beat Spain.
What's more chance of happening? West Tigers beat the Warriors or the Dutch beat the Spanish? I think the Netherlands beating Spain has more chance of happening.
They've got
Absolutely.
an even chance?
Yeah.
Look, the West Tigers are not going to beat the Warriors unless...
Well, they could.
That would be the biggest surprise of the NRL season.
No, the Tigers beating the Panthers in round 4 or 5 probably is.
Well, it'd run at a close second. Right now, it'd run at a close second, right?
Yeah, the Tigers have good performances in them from time to time.
Well, they've had 3, Lachlan.
Yeah. Well, there's been...
No, didn't they go through a patch? I can't remember, was it this year or last year?
Last year they beat the Cowboys but didn't because of a stupid penalty given at the end. And then they beat my Broncos a week later.
Yeah.
That was the start of our...
That's last year, that's not
the start
this year.
of our slide.
So the Dutch beating Spain, I think that would be a surprise at the Women's World Cup.
Yeah, it would be, but I could see it happening. It's not as if the Dutch are scrubs. So... And Spain, look, Spain are a very good side. They did lose by quite a bit to Japan in the group stage.
4-0, mate.
Yeah, and who did they beat in the round of 16?
5-0?
They beat Norway, but it was 3-1 or something, wasn't it? They beat Norway in the round of 16, I think.
No, that was Japan that beat Norway.
Oh, wait, who did Spain beat? Oh, Spain would have beaten the other, they beat
Switzerland. They put 5 on them, remember? 5-1 it was.
Yeah, but it was closer than that, though. The scoreline flattered them a little bit, I thought. So, absolutely, the Dutchies could get a win there. And it's the knockout phase of a World... I mean, Morocco got to the semi-finals of the Men's World Cup last year. The USA are out of this one already. So, bloody... Who didn't make... Germany. Well, Germany, Brazil and Italy didn't even make it out of the group. I mean, weird things happen at FIFA World Cups.
What is more chance of happening, Lachlan? West Tigers beat the Warriors on Saturday night, or Sweden beat Japan?
Again, a FIFA World Cup. It's one match, knockout... But I'll actually say the Tigers beating the Warriors has more chance of happening now that I think about it. I think Japan are the team to beat at the World Cup. So I'd say I give the Tigers a shout. I really do. It's a home game technically for them, meaning a lot of their supporters would have flown over for it. I'd give the Tigers a real good shout.
I know at least one.
But I also want the Warriors to lose, so that's why I'm saying that. No, purely because of the table. Because I want the distance between them and my Broncos to be as big as possible.
Well, you win one more game and it's over, really, because...
Actually, then again, I'd rather play the Warriors than the Storm in the first week of the finals.
Would you?
Yep, absolutely. I don't want to go near the Storm when the finals come because I think the Storm will start to win a few games between now and then. If they go on a roll, if they win the next 4, I don't want to take on.
I agree with you, and I don't know about you, league fans, but I think that we keep talking about the Knights of the sleeper team. I think that people have decided the Melbourne Storm, because they're not the Melbourne Storm with Cameron Smith and Cooper Cronk, that this is not a Melbourne Storm side to fear. But they've still got a pretty big mobile forward pack. If they get Pappenhausen back and he plays regularly, I still think Munster gets them around the field and is capable of winning games like we saw in Origin, producing moments that, like a player like he only can. I don't. They don't appear to me, the Melbourne Storm at the moment, as yes, you're going to win the premiership. But I tell you, I will not be at all surprised if they're there in the final, Lachlan, at all.
No, for them to get to the final, they've got to knock out. They'll have to knock out one of Penrith or Brisbane if they don't get knocked out along the way. And I don't see that they won't be. Penrith, I think they're in
a one-off case. They're like the Wallabies at the World Cup. On a one-off basis, they are capable of beating any team in this
they certainly are. But you've also got to look at it as, for example, the Broncos play the Storm in the second to last, the last round of the season at Suncorp. Brisbane haven't beaten Melbourne at Suncorp since 2009, by the way. Is that result
going to be significant?
Absolutely.
It may not be. You might have enough of a lead at this stage.
No, because this is the thing. If the Warriors can win all their games, we've got Parramatta this weekend, for example. Parramatta over the last couple of years have had some big wins over the Broncos. Real big wins. So again, we could lose that final Storm game. Then the Warriors are tied with us, and who knows? By then, points difference could favour the Warriors. So,
then you're away in Canberra actually before you play the Storm.
Oh, so
in some in some ways, these.
Should we have Canberra? I think
you are.
Twice.
Yeah. So, you get. These are difficult games to have, but at the same time, they are going to tune you up. You are going to be final.
We do have the Raiders.
Yeah, finals ready. Those are 3 tough games to finish on. I think you've got a bye in there as well, haven't you?
We do have a bye, yeah, and we've also got those are we've got 3 left, yeah. So we've got. Para, then we've got the bye, then the Raiders, then the Storm.
What is more chance of happening then? The West Tigers do beat the Warriors on Saturday night in the Tron, or Australia beat France in their quarterfinal?
Again, France have looked really good, but I will say Australia beating France. That's got more chance of happening. I think Australia can absolutely win that game. I think there is this real. We talk about the hype around the World Cup here right now. Australia are lucky because their team is still in it and had a chance from the start. And I would absolutely bet on the fact that Football Australia have marketed this World Cup over there far better than New Zealand football have. And they've gotten former players and old teams and whatnot involved in the whole process much better than we have. So I think it's an absolute party across the ditch, and especially in those big cities. And I absolutely think they're a good side, Australia. And Sam Kerr's back. I think she's still probably going to be in limited minutes. I'm not sure. She's back. Absolutely give them a chance. Absolutely. I'd actually love to be over there right now because I think it'd be wonderful. It'd be a great atmosphere to be a part of. Just even at the games or at sort of fan festivals that they have, it'd be awesome.
Final one, more chance of happening. Tigers beat Warriors Saturday night, or Colombia, as you call it.
That's how you pronounce it. That's why. Yes, it's like Tokyo. It's not Tokyo.
When you're buying some in Medellin, you probably do, but I think here in New Zealand we call it Colombia, don't we, mate?
Yeah, we call it Colombia because we think they're in Canada. That's why.
Colombia beat England.
No, I would say England. So I'd say there's more chance that the Tigers beat the Warriors this way. Again, the Tigers, I give them a shout. I really do. Because, look, there's 8 games in the NRL this weekend. All 8 games have, I think, a clear favourite, which means there's going to be 3 or 4 upsets because there always are. And I think the Eels are very capable of beating us and the Tigers are capable of beating the Warriors. Absolutely.
Simon Doull, what a life this guy leads. 98 Test wickets for New Zealand. He has now carved out a brilliant career as a commentator all over the world. At the moment, calling the 100 in England. He will be at the One Day Cricket World Cup in India. A couple of really key questions to consider. Trent Boult, should he be fast-tracked back into the Black Caps when he turned his back on New Zealand to play his T20 leagues all around the world? And Kane Williamson, is he the Sia Khaleesi of New Zealand cricket? Do we just take him and hope that he can play? Dooley. Let's talk about Trent Boult then, named in the Black Caps for the one-day series against England. I don't know what significance these matches are going to have in terms of the one-day World Cup, but, him back in says everything, doesn't it? He wants to play. The door has always been left open for him, and he will be in that Black Caps squad in India. No question about it, injury obviously permitting.
Absolutely, and rightly so. And, we've talked about it quite a lot on the show in the past about the service that Trent Boult has given to New Zealand cricket over a long period of time, in excess of 300 Test wickets. He is a key component in any white ball format as far as I'm concerned, and he has to be part of that World Cup side. If we are any chance of making the semi-finals, and I say that with all due respect, I think without Kane Williamson, our chances diminish quite significantly. So if Kane is fit, and I understand they're keeping the door open for him, which is the right thing to do. I mean, if
they have to,
2 days before the tournament, I'm ready to go.
Absolutely.
He's in, as far as I'm concerned. You can't leave one of the best players that probably the best player New Zealand's ever seen, and one of the best players the world's seen in the last 20 years. You can't give him enough time for my liking.
Well, in terms of the rules, though, mate, if say, for example, he was able to bat, but he can't run. Would we be able to select him and have a runner alongside him, or can that only happen?
No.
Oh, okay, right. If he gets injured at the time.
Not
okay,
at all.
Right.
No, if he's injured, he's out. So, look, you name him in the provisional 20-man squad, I think it is, or they have to name 20 by the 3rd or 4th of September, I think. I mean, give me a couple of days on that, but that's around about the time that they have to name a provisional squad. And from that provisional squad, you must name your 14 or 15 that will tour India. And that's the, that's the time. And I don't know when that exact time is, but that's sort of, it will come closer to the tournament, which starts with, of course, New Zealand, England, on the 5th of October in Ahmedabad, which will, again, more than likely be close to sold out, which is over 100,000. And it's just going to be amazing. But as I say, look, we need Trent Boult, and New Zealand need him massively. If he is there and Kane's there, then we are a chance of making those semi-finals. If only one of them are there, look, our chances diminish dramatically, I think.
Couple of questions about Trent Boult. Would you have the same attitude about every single player in the squad, or do you have the attitude that, look, not everyone is Jonah Lomu, the dearly departed. You've got to treat every individual on their merits, and Trent Boult is Trent Boult. The other part of that question is, he's been playing MLC in the United States and those kind of leagues a bit Mickey Mouse. Is he going to be the Trent Boult that we want him to be? Because I had this argument with Lachlan yesterday, and I said, look, Trent Boult's got a massive ego. He's an absolute competitor. He is thoroughly professional in the way that he prepares. There's no way he's turning up to that World Cup if he's not Trent Boult.
100% agree with you on that front. He will turn up and he will be ready to go. His only issue and the only thing from switching to all of these T20 tournaments, all of these short tournaments, is getting through 10 overs. Is the 8th, 9th and 10th over, is it as good as it was 2 years ago when you're in your pomp? And that will be up to him to get that right for this England series. 4 games in England leading into the World Cup. So he's got a good chance to prove himself in as far as bowling 8 to 9 to 10 overs in that series, probably in 2 at least of the 4 games. I don't know that he'll get through his full quota of 10 overs in all 4 games, and we don't know what the weather's going to be like in September either, Marty. So those would be the little things that he has to go through. But look, ultimate professional. He's always been an athlete. He's always been a runner. He's always been a guy that's been incredibly fit, and he will be no different turning up to any of these games for New Zealand and England, and he'll be right and raring to go, knows the conditions well as far as India is concerned. I think he's improved his skills at the back end of an innings, so what we call the death bowling skills. I think the T20 tournaments have really improved those skills. I didn't think he was the best death bowler going back 3, 4, 5 years. I thought those were skills, and they're the only skills, because he's probably, in my opinion, one of the best we've ever seen with the brand new ball.
Bowler, yeah, hell yes.
But I just thought there was probably his work-ons were probably the last 2, 3 overs, and I think those have got eminently better in the last 2 to 3 years as well. So for me, he's coming back into this New Zealand side probably a better bowler, in my opinion.
You don't mind the specialist treatment. You've worn this black cap. You've played for the country.
No, not at all.
Okay. But would you open the door for everybody, or is it just
horses?
Okay, fair enough. That's cool.
Yep, horses for courses. Each, it's like the All Blacks saying that everyone can go and have a sabbatical. No, they can't. Dan Carter can, Richie McCaw can, Brodie Retallick can.
Ardie can.
And they deserve it. Ardie can. They deserve that for the reasons that we've just talked about. They are in the top echelon of their craft in the world. And if we want to hold on to these people, if we want them to still pull the fern on, then we have to allow them a little bit of leeway. Are we going to allow that to everybody? No, we're not, because not everybody commands their position. Not everybody owns the position in the team. So I don't have any issue with it whatsoever.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full.
The Tide 5.
5 separate sporting topics, 60 seconds or thereabouts on each. And when the bell, we move quickly on to the next topic. NPC Rugby last night, Taranaki versus Northland. Did you watch? Last time the Warriors made the top 4 was when, Lachlan? No Michael Hooper for the Wallabies. This is going to be a shock selection tonight, or was it expected? Kane, do you take him to the One Day World Cup and just hope and pray that he is going to be able to play? Yitka is committed to more. The 6-year deal, she's got another 4 years to go. Do you rubber stamp Yitka Klimkova back into the Football Ferns job? We can celebrate with our record haul at the World Track Cycling Championships. Tonight we've got Manly versus Penrith. And the Dally M's I want to talk about. But we'll start with the rugby, NPC rugby, Taranaki versus Northland last night. A couple of things. The crowds aren't there for this, and I keep saying they should turn it into a television sport, either Saturday or Sunday afternoon, have the men's and women's all simultaneously, or the women playing, the FPC before the NPC, make it multi-screens, let people sit there and do a red zone with it. I think that's, that is the way to me. It's not going to get a walk-up gate like it ever used to. And I feel for the players. I feel for everyone who organises the comp, who works so hard, the local volunteers and everything. You deserve a bigger audience. And I reckon the way to start that audience, Lachlan, is through the television set or through the app, as opposed to thinking that people are going to come to these games. See, I'm in favour of a Wednesday night game. I know that you're not. You reckon that they should all be played in the afternoon. I agree with that. Saturday, Sunday afternoons. I agree with moving them to the smaller grounds. I agree with all of that kind of stuff. I think one or two
games on a Monday would be good.
But I want to resurrect this because this is the foundation stone of New Zealand rugby, the NPC.
I like the idea of a red zone type thing where you bring all the games really together. So whether on a Saturday, take it around the country, take it to all these different little towns. That might hike up the cost in terms of accommodation and travel costs for the team, so I'm not too sure.
Hang on a minute, mate. They send television crews and all the gear everywhere around New Zealand every weekend, don't they? How much does that cost?
Yeah, true.
Concentrated in one place, you probably save a bit of cash.
So you would have maybe, so how many teams? There's 14 teams in the NPC, so 7 games a weekend. And then you've got, I want to say there's 12 in the Whara Palmer Cup. And there's a further something like 12 or 13 in the Heartland Championship. Anyway, so let's say you pull together about 6 games on a Saturday, 6 or 7 on a Sunday, however many, and you as you say, you have a whole lot of cameras on all of these games that are going on, or maybe you just do them in pockets around the country. You've got 2 or 3 maybe games going on in all these different locations. You don't take them to the big stadiums because you're not going to fill them. You take them to small suburban grounds, like what they do in the NRL with the likes of like the West Tigers when the Bulldogs go to Belmore. Those are small grounds, but they have great little energetic crowds. Make it free for your kids, probably free for everyone.
I think free for everyone, mate, because they're not earning any money off the ticket prices anyway. So, let's go to Masterton and make it like this. 4 or 5 games are going to happen in Masterton on a Saturday, right?
Yeah.
And it's free. Yeah. It's free to go along.
Yeah. And you've got Tasman taking on Taranaki, you've got Hawke's Bay up against North, and then you have like a Heartland Championship game or 2, and then you have a Whara Palmer Cup game.
So you might have to do it in a couple of different grounds. You might have to have Masterton, you might have to have, say, Whitebeat, but you have it in a couple of different places close together so that people can travel between the two if they want to, and you just concentrate it all at that time in that place.
Now, see, the problem there is that you're taking away the teams from the likes of, say, Southland, the likes of Manawatu, the likes of Hawke's Bay, Tasman, Northland, who the majority of those smaller teams, not the Aucklands or the Wellingtons or the Waikatos, the smaller teams, a lot of the towns love those teams and turn up. So then you're taking them away from them.
But as long as with all of these teams, you give those places a good couple of rounds every year where they, So, look, I'm just straight. Look, these are all ideas in the middle of the table. We're brainstorming with a whiteboard. We're
doing more than what NZR are doing.
The other thing that I notice is, good God, mate, the gap now between NPC and All Blacks it's irretrievable. The gap between the playing standard. I don't know how you could make the All Blacks by playing NPC rugby anymore. I really don't.
It's pretty horrendous. I mean, like when I was young and I was first following the All Blacks, I remember, I was 10 or 11 years old at the time. But I remember when the All Blacks named debutants straight from NPC into the NDV tour team for 2008, and one of them was Kieran Reid, who ended up being our captain. Right. One of them was Corey Jane, who ended up being a huge part of our 2011 World Cup.
I think Nehi made the World Cup squad from playing
so as well.
NPC.
I remember Mike Delaney did straight out of Dave Penny as well.
I honestly, after watching, I just thought, my God, it just seems so far away now. A text has come in. Yitka Klimkova. No, she should have had the kahunas to play different players at the World Cup and didn't. No room for nicey much as New Zealand football prefer that to Danny Hayes' approach. Her run as manager is shocking. In fact, give Danny the job. I'm going to disagree with you on that, Ian. And I have been a big critic of Yitka over the last year or two because I just couldn't see any future at all for that side. However, the win against Norway, I think, is enough to convince me that at least another year or two. I don't think there's... I mean, who is better at the moment, better placed? I don't like the way that she has kept all of those fossils in the team and the people power and stuff, but she's got an opportunity now to change it. And in the next couple of years, if the results are like we've had the last couple of years, take away the Norway result, I would say rip the contract up. But right now, after this World Cup, Lachlan, I would say rubber stamp the woman in for another couple of years.
Yeah, well, who else is going to take the job? That's the thing. I don't know.
Well, how long did it take to try and find a coach for the men's team?
Yeah, and I don't know who would be well suited for.
But that Norway result saved her job for her. If we hadn't beaten Norway and we'd had to say a draw in that game and bowed out without really scoring a goal or performing at the World Cup, you could say, gone. Yeah. But no, I actually think that job is enough for me to say, okay, sign, promise.
I do agree with the text of that. I mean, there were some selection decisions made.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Especially in the third game that were confusing as hell.
Well, having Carthorse up front was one of them, wasn't it?
Yeah,
I mean, the worst thing that happened to the football ferns was Wilco scored that goal against Norway. Because if she hadn't, she probably would have been dropped.
Well, worst and best. But I mean, at the same time, UK's on a 6-year deal starting from 2 years ago, so she's fine. It's not a case of re-signing her. It's a case of just leaving her in the job. There's no reason to get rid of her. I don't think it was such an appalling campaign.
Tonight, Manly versus Penrith, who you got?
Penrith.
Yeah?
Yes. They are marching towards...
Are they Man City?
They are organically. Imagine Man City built up all of their talent through their academy.
Please,
Imagine
mate.
Man City actually didn't go out and buy all of this talent.
Please.
This is we talked a lot, especially after the grand final last year with their celebrations. It goes a lot of talk is made about how Penrith are the sorest of winners. They are just punishing when they win because they lord it over people. They flaunt it about. They're not gracious in any way whatsoever, it seems, at least some of the players. The thing is, they are so good, but the way they've been created is incredible. Like the Roosters team that won back-to-back premierships in 18 and 19, you go through that roster and a huge chunk of the rep level of they bought them.
Yeah, of course they did. Same as South Sydney when they won it, they bought a team. You know.
Well, I mean, South's less so, but I mean, Melbourne as well. I mean, to an extent.
Yeah, they didn't.
Yeah,
what did they look at the big boat in my driveway?
Penrith are very similar to, I'd say, the Broncos teams of the 90s, but really around the 2000s, especially in 2006. There's so many homegrown players there, but to the even more so, guys who've gone through their junior grades and right up through all the age groups and whatnot, playing New South Wales Cup and that stuff. I mean, Nathan Cleary, Jerome Luai, and all of these guys. Matt Burton, who's gone now, Paul Moravsky's gone now, Dylan Edwards, I think, is in that conversation as well. Liam Martin, all of them. Genuine homegrown to the area of just Penrith itself, not just Sydney.
Go back
it's
to when
actually
they won it in
incredible.
1991. Same thing.
Yeah.
That whole team, the Alexanders, MG, they're all homegrown players, mate.
All Penrith people. And they are. I mean, honestly, it's a bit like the tennis. The big four or the big three more so in tennis, men's tennis. We're gonna in 30, 40 years, we're gonna look back at this period and go, geez, that was some team.
Because they're
going to win 5 or 6 premierships, but they're doing it with their own catalogue.
Quick question for you. When was the last time the Warriors made the top 4?
2007. They finished 4th.
And?
They played Parramatta in the first week. They only won about 12 or 13 games because it was so tight between 4th and about 8th. I think Brisbane only won 11 games.
Parramatta lost to, was it?
North Queensland.
Yes, got thrashed up there, didn't we?
Yeah, and I think any real leaguey nuts will remember that it was like 35 degrees in Townsville. It was like 90% humidity as well. It was horrendously slippery and boiling and disgusting. There was no way the Warriors were going to win that game. But yeah, 2007.
Might actually have 6 topics today because I want to talk about this Dally M thing too before we get to Doull just quickly. And we'll debate it again with Costo at about 3:30. Trent Boult and Kane Williamson. Okay. Well, Dooley's going to argue about this one, but I'm in favour of Trent Boult playing because I'm greedy and pragmatic when it comes to that. Is Kane Williamson our Sia Khaleesi? You just take him regardless and hope that he's going to be able to play. I'm not sure when they cut the squad from 20.
I think so, but I just don't think he'll play. I just don't think he will.
Final topic. We'll ask Simon more about this.
You don't take Trent Boult, though.
I want to argue about the Dally M. And, to me, I draw the parallel with, the guy that is always the MVP in the Super Bowl is the quarterback because he gets the most attention. He's got the ball in his hands.
No, not the regular season, not the Super Bowl. Though.
When it comes to your best player, which is what the Dally M is, if you asked me who the best player for the Warriors is this year, I would argue that there's 3. Adam Fanua-Blake.
Agree.
Chance.
Agree.
And SJ. Now, 2 of those guys are going to get a lot more attention, have a hell of a lot more chance of winning 3 points every week for a Dally M, and they are SJ and Chance because they get their hands on the ball a hell of a lot more. Whereas I would actually argue that Adam has been my most valuable player because his metres every game are over 100. His metres after contact are usually 60 to 70, if not 80. That guy is the foundation stone upon which every Warriors win is based. And yet he won't get that 3 points every game because, I'm not in any way diminishing the value of Sean Johnson or anyone else, but you see what I mean? It's just like, a tight head prop's never going to get 3 points at the end of an All Black test and say, you're the best player out there today, are you? Because none of us know what the hell he does. But the players might decide that guy is your best player on the field. I think a lot of the players would probably agree with me that Adam has been the superstar of the Warriors this year. I mean, he's got to be one of the best props in the comp block. Come on.
Well, he is one of the best. I'll turn that round. Do you know who the guy who is supposedly neck and neck with Sean Johnson for the Dally M?
No.
Payne Haas. What position does he play?
Oh, okay, good point.
He's prop.
All right,
now, I'm looking at a leaderboard. Now, okay, so the Dally M points leaderboard is publicised until round 12, and then it goes behind closed doors. Now, I don't know if this is as of round 12 because the points are all out of whack, and it suggests that it could be as of currently. Anyway, but top of the leaderboard was Payne Haas, Nathan Cleary, Harry Grant's a hooker, Nico Hines is in the halves, Reece Walsh fullback, Latrell Mitchell fullback. So you are right to an extent. I mean, 2016, Justin Tomalolo shared it with Cooper Cronk. So forwards do get recognised, I think.
A lot harder for them.
It is harder, but there's a reason why it's harder, is that your halfback or your 5'8" is the first receiver out of the ruck. They control the pace of your attack, essentially. They decide whether the ball gets put to boot, whether they pass it out, whether they run and hit the line themselves.
But this is meant to be the best player in the comp.
I know. But like a quarterback, when you talk about the best player, you've also got to talk about the conversion when they've got the responsibility or heightened responsibility. Like a quarterback, they control the pace of play, particularly at the end of sets.
I understand all that.
Sean Johnson makes a bunch of these decisions. I mean, Adam Fennell-Blake only hits the line hard.
Mate, that's where I played my code. I played all my basketball in the paint. I was there when the boots were.
You didn't play basketball. But I played on the wing when I played rugby, So, I was a right back in football, so I was in positions that were not glamorous positions. The wing.
Well, the winger is.
No, kind of. But the point is that Sean Johnson is the playmaker of this team. He is the general. He guides the team across the park. With that comes greater responsibility, more so than someone like an Adam Fennell-Blake.
I just think it's easier for him to get the 3 points at the end of each game.
Well, at the same time, when Sean Johnson, hold on.
How does he do that?
I'm right.
No. I'll leave you with this. Last year, when he wasn't playing well, he got slagged like crazy.
Sure.
More so than anyone else in the team.
Sure.
Because he's the halfback.
Sure.
He's the general.
Yeah.
So when you're not playing well, you're heavily criticised. But when you are playing well, you're heavily rewarded.
Greg Martin, Marto, former Wallaby fullback way back when, now a breakfast host for Triple M in Brisbane. They do a man show. They talk about men's stuff, silly old stupid men's stuff, and they rate their absolute yas off. He joins us every Thursday. Just a, yeah. All right, Greg, let's start with the domestic situation because you've spent most of the last week moving house. It's not house, it's to an apartment. It involves 66 separate stairs. Why did you move somewhere where there's no lift?
Because my wife wanted to move there, and we were booted out of the little cottage we'd been in. We were renting from our nephew. Who rents from their nephew?
Who rents from their nephew?
Yeah, well, we did, because we didn't know where we wanted to live after we sold our house. And then 2 years later, we go, oh, you're going to have a baby. You want to move back to Brisbane. Right, have your house back. Then we had to find a place. And I didn't realise when I looked at the place how many stairs there were, because it was all exciting. But then when you're carrying big, heavy stuff, I had to get a couple of Samoan blokes and feed them lots of chickens and stuff to get them up there. So, crikey.
Yeah, but hang on a second, mate. Sorry, it doesn't stop here. So now, every time you are on your way home, there's going to be a text, there's going to be a phone call. Greg, we need milk, we need this, we need this. You're carrying grocery bags every day up those stairs, mate. You know that, don't you?
Do you remember when I told you back in December when I had my knee replaced from playing too much rugby?
Yes.
It's enjoying every one of those 66 steps. Anyway, it's good. My wife's happy.
We played a B team against you lot in Dunedin. You couldn't even beat us then.
Oh,
Come on,
no,
man.
you're not going to get...
I'm going to do that, mate.
Every single Kiwi who lives here in Brisbane has rung, well, what's wrong with your Wallabies? I think it's bloody hilarious. It wasn't your B team. You don't have a B team.
Sorry,
you have about 3,000 people who are all of the same ability who you just keep trotting out there, and we're very jealous of you. And we went, can't you just be nice enough to go, geez, you guys were played out of your skin in that first half?
Well, we gave Eddie something to cling on to, mate, and I mean that's the worst thing, and it's upset a lot of All Black fans. Upset, past All Blacks like Justin Marshall and the Mex on the program are just saying, why the hell did we do this? Play the proper team, play this first choice selection, smack them by 50 and end it. But no, we opened the door again.
No. What you did, because you think every World Cup, you think about it, every World Cup throws up an injury, a wicked injury, whether it's at number 10, do you remember, or whether it whatever position it is, they throw up injuries. You've got to give these younger guys and the B team players, as you call them, you've got to give them a run. So otherwise there'll be surprises that you won't be able to cope with when you're over in France. Give them a run now. That's what it's about. Can't believe you can't play the A team every game.
Of course you can, mate. This is what Marshy was saying. This is what they train for, the rugby players, Greg. Play every week. The NRL guys do it.
Sure.
Yeah, no, but the sports scientists come involved now. That's what happens, mate. I know you can't. The guy with the clipboard decides who plays and when they play, mate. That's how New Zealand rugby works.
Well, no, that's how Australian rugby... Well, I don't know how Australian rugby works. I haven't got my head around it. None from 4. We haven't named our team yet. We're waiting to spring a few late surprises on you.
Well, is Hooper going to make it or not? Because all the word out of Australia is that he's going to be, I quote, a shock non-selection. Is that true?
It sounds like no. When you get to 31, whatever he is, and he's been a warrior and everything else, but he'd be like Sam Kerr. He wouldn't be able to play the first 2 or 3 games, and they can't operate on that. Imagine if he plays half of the third game against Georgia, does his calf, and you've wasted a player at the World Cup. We've got to have Fraser McWright there, so it sounds like Hooper is gone, and I reckon they're going to go with Tate McDermott as captain, which is quite extraordinary because he wasn't even in the squad for the first test of the year. So Eddie came in and he said there's going to be a few surprises, and there probably will be. I reckon there might be a bolter called Jorgensen in there tonight when they name the team.
The Matildas, mate. Are they going to do it? Are they the toast of the town? Is the whole country talking about them?
It's quite extraordinary. Do you know they outrated, on television, they outrated all 3 Origin games.
Wow.
I know. It's been extraordinary. I thought it was just a bunch of screaming 12-year-old girls who are loving them. It's our nation. I didn't realise how much we love soccer. Not me, I'm saying, but I'm getting along for the game. But Sam Kerr, they're calling her the world's best footballer. I don't know if she is because we haven't seen her play enough. But they've just... something's happened here. It's been extraordinary, mate. Everyone's an expert on soccer. Still don't know the offside rule, but everyone's an expert, and they're carrying Australia on their coattails. I think we're having a soccer-led economic recovery over here.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full. That's our podcast for today. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to listen to the entire show, 1 till 4, Monday to Friday, download the Platform app, and via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to whatever shows over however many weeks at your leisure, at your listening pleasure. Platform Plus. First thing to do, though, is download the Platform app.
Devlin.
Unbelievable. Incredible.
The Platform.